Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Checklist on a Wednesday, the show where we step back from playing games just long enough to laugh at each other's experiences with them. This week, as we remain smothered in the irresistible high fantasy, high difficulty embrace of Elden Ring, we decided to talk about games that have taught us valuable lessons, but in the most brutal way possible. First to be educated is Dave, although quite why he needed to be told to stand back from Dynamite still confounds me to this day.
A lesson I learned the hard way was that in Red Dead Redemption 2, L2 lights the fuse, R2 throws the dynamite.
How did you learn that lesson, Dave?
Oh, I learned that
Dynamite
lesson.
Dave?
I learned that lesson whilst we were streaming. Yes, this is the story of how I became Dynamite Dave to some. Rob and I were streaming Red Dead Redemption 2 and we decided to do a challenge online, as we sometimes do, which was to try and earn $1,000. I decided to take the route of evil and to steal my money. I am now mystified by myself by what happened. After a lot of faff, Rob and I decided to rob a train. We kept robbing the wrong trains. We kept getting on the trains that aren't the passenger trains, that have no money on, of which to speak. We kept just like holding up trains, causing havoc, and then getting on there and being like, there's nothing
Where
here.
is everyone?
Stand! And we couldn't figure out how to find a passenger train until I think someone in the comments suggested we just buy a ticket somewhere. And then a passenger train will come. So I love how it starts with being like an upstanding member of society. Like, I'd like a ticket, please. Like, you were just here a minute. Weren't you just told? No, I'd like a ticket, please. It's completely unrelated.
wrong
I've changed
train.
my ways. It quickly became apparent this was not going to work. Well, this was not going to earn me $1,000 because the men and women of the train were carrying about $1.25. So we're going around and holding people up and they're giving us their pocket watch and some change and they're all quite sad and maybe one or two of them had to die, I don't remember. Probably. It's so hard not to just to make an example of one, for the rest of the carriage to know what can happen. And especially because some of them are a bit sassy and I don't know where they get
they try and play the hero, some of them.
I don't know where they get the idea they can be sassy. And the chat were telling us that the real money was to be made in the mail car where there is a safe. And we found the safe and there is no option to open the safe. I guess it's a safe. It would be mad if it was just like triangle to open the safe. It became apparent that dynamite had to be used. What was not apparent was that to use dynamite, I'd never used it before, I don't think, and I assumed that I would have to throw the unlit dynamite towards the safe and it would roll around on the floor and then I'd get out my revolver and I'd shoot it accurately and it would explode and we'd all be millionaires. That is not the case, and in trying to throw the dynamite, he just lights the dynamite. And I think at that point it's not. I think you're still okay. I think the game is like it doesn't. I don't think the fuse burns down until you throw the dynamite. So I would have been fine just with this lit dynamite, but I just didn't know. It's so weird watching it back because I just casually light the dynamite and throw it a foot in front of me at the safe and it just rolls back towards my feet. And Rob starts freaking out. He's just like, Dave! And I'm just stood there just like, it's fine, Rob. It's gonna be fine. And just explode. And I'm killed. And I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what I was thinking or why I thought it was going to be okay. But I learnt my lesson, I think. I learnt my lesson. L2 lights the dynamite. If you just want to throw the dynamite, it's R2. If you want to stick the dynamite, it's R2. If you want to light the dynamite, it's L2. Okay? No one else need learn this the hard way. Are we all understood?
Lesson. I
don't want you to go through what I went through.
L2 aims or preps and R2 executes.
Exactly, and execute it did.
Do you hear the name Dynamite Dave and just get reminded of the shame?
I hear the name Dave and I'm reminded of the shame, Rosie, whether it's got dynamite in front of it or not.
So, a lesson I learnt the hard way it's still stuck with me whenever I play an RPG or anything that requires leveling up to grind. And that is when I first played the first Kingdom Hearts and I ran past every single encounter because I was like, I don't want to fight, there's so many enemies and fighting, I just want to progress with the story, with Donald and Goofy, I'm having a wonderful time, I want to explore the Disney worlds. So I ran past every single Heartless, didn't care about them, and I managed to get up to the Tarzan world and the Chameleon boss with Clayton. Clayton's riding this Heartless. Do you remember this boss?
Yeah, I remember it well, yes.
And I think I've seen people online saying that this boss is when we did our difficulty spikes, when I saw someone in the comments say, "Oh, the Chameleon in Kingdom Hearts," I was like, "Oh my god, I remember it being a bit tougher than, or the whole Tarzan world really being a bit tougher than it was than the Alice in Wonderland world." But little old Rosie, he was just, never really played a turn-based... Disney! Donald and Goofy, I love Sora, we're going on adventure, I got a Keyblade, whee! Having a great time like that. So when it did come to going to the Deep Jungle, I believe the world's called, I was just getting a whooping from all the Heartless, the way the monkeys did their little claw attacks when they jumped and then they did the leg slide.
Yeah. The monkeys I remember especially. Like that little combo of, like you say, and then I remember one monkey. I just couldn't get anything on it. Just slide, claw, slide, claw.
Was it like the golden female-looking monkey?
Oh, you're bringing back lots of.
Because I remember that monkey being a pain.
Yeah, I remember all of this now. Oh God.
But I just have I learned the hard way because I just remember thinking this game's got really hard, and then that's when I sort of got the concept of leveling up your characters, getting more HP, getting stronger, actually sort of maybe equipping some things so that your defense is a bit better. This is when I actually started learning how an RPG worked. So it was a hard lesson that I learned. But that moment when I did beat Clayton, the only thing I remember is seeing that cutscene over and over again and Tarzan just going, "Not Clayton," like all the time. It's dug into my brain. But that was a lesson I learned the hard way, and my first big lesson of grind, do the grind, and now I love grinding in video games. I find it very therapeutic and relaxing.
Yes. Well, I always go the opposite way now. I over level. I will not progress in a game unless I am 10 levels higher than the recommended level for an area.
Yep. Oh, they're the best moments. Like in the moment, if I'm playing a From Software game and I know I'm a little bit more overpowered than I should be, I'm like, yes.
That's the only way I can play them.
Yeah, just being a little bit more.
If I'm at the recommended level, then it's too hard.
I'm a little bit better than you. I need to be a little bit stronger than you, boss villain.
That's the only way I think of, adjusting the difficulty in games that don't necessarily have difficulty levels. Final Fantasy games don't have easy, normal and hard difficulty traditionally.
No, it's just...
But the way you put it onto easy secretly is by over-leveling.
If you have the patience, you will have a blissful time in any RPG. If you have the patience to grind and level up, wonderful time. Kingdom Hearts, that Chameleon Heartless Clayton would have been killed by Sora easily if I knew back then about the patience and joys of grinding. I just went, no, ignore all the enemies. Run, Sora, run!
So, a lesson I learned the hard way, and I learned this in a very hard way, was to always read the tutorial at the beginning. Because if you don't, if you're impatient, like I was when I first played Final Fantasy VIII,
oh no, of course!
and you skip the tutorial, when Quistis is lovingly trying to tell you how the junctioning system works right at the beginning of the game. I was like, come on, Quistis, let's go to the fire cavern. Come on, yes, blah, 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 skip. Don't need to know about all of this, because what can happen is you can get through the whole game of Final Fantasy VIII without fully understanding the junction system.
I thought I understood it. I apparently didn't.
You can get all the way to the bit, the point of no return, where you go into Ultimecia's castle. I didn't even get all of the GFs, like I got just the basic ones. Like I was such an idiot. I was such a noob. Like it's one of my first ever Final Fantasy games. Just like, ooh, story, lovely graphics, CG cutscenes, diddly-dee. Just, in my own stupid little world. Getting all the way to the final boss with just no real understanding of the junctioning system, because I hadn't paid attention to what Quistis was saying at the beginning. Even if I did, I probably wouldn't have understood it, to be honest. And in the final boss against Ultimecia, or Ultimecia, however you like to pronounce it, she summons Griever, her own guardian force, and it does a move called Shockwave Pulsar. I just couldn't survive it.
It just did an amount of damage to me that was beyond my maximum HP. I hadn't paid enough attention because in Final Fantasy VIII you've got to junction magic spells to your stats, and I just did not understand that concept.
That's the thing I didn't understand. I understand the whole like GF thing,
Yeah.
that, you know, that you can swap their abilities and stuff. I didn't understand that whenever you got to one of those magic points where it's like, oh, you can pick up 5 Quake, for example. I was thinking, oh, but like, you know, Squall's already got one, so he doesn't need another one. Now I'm like, oh no, he should have took all of them.
I wasn't using magic, Rosie. I was like, I don't need magic. I don't use magic. Why do I need it? All I need to do to get through a fight is to summon my GFs. That's all I did. I'd get to a boss fight and I would just spam all of the GFs and it would get me through, and I used the boost ability where you hold down select and you're like, pressing square like a maniac, trying to get your GFs to do as much damage as possible, augmented with a few limit breaks. Like I'd break out the old Renzo Kuchen with Squall. But that's not enough. Like you need, and especially when Ultimacia starts like banishing like whole loads of your magic. She does a move and she's like, poof, all of your Firagas were blown away. So what stats I did have magic junction to were obliterated. So the hard way I learned the lesson was that I got to a point where physically, it didn't matter how good I was in the fight, I couldn't do it. I just didn't have the strength or the defensive power to withstand this attack that happens almost like it's a set piece that this attack happens. Even if you kill Griever before he does the attack, he still does the attack before he dies because it's a thing that has to happen. He has to do Shockwave Pulse. I just couldn't survive it. And so I had to start the game from the beginning. There was nothing else for it.
That's what I got to do as well.
So it was like 80 hours of progress for nothing, basically. Yeah, the lesson, always read the tutorial. It's when it's a complicated, deep RPG system. I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who needs to hear this.
If you're out there,
read the tutorial. I implore you, okay? Just sacrifice 10 minutes of your time at the beginning of the game and get used to it. What an idiot. What an idiot I was.
Another lesson I learned the hard way was not to be too honest with my colleagues.
oh, why not? And we're friends.
Or friends.
Or friends.
With no one. Right? Basically, don't be too honest with anybody because it can come back to bite you. And I think this has probably come back to bite me many, many different ways in my career and life on Access. But the most telling of those, the one I wish I could go back and just pretend, just suck it up for just one game. I don't know at the exact moment, but it's when I told Rob and Nath that I was really afraid of horror games, because that has affected my life. That sent me on a path from which I cannot come back. I've tried, but there is no going back.
You could say it's put you on rails, eh? Like Rush of Blood.
Oh. Of all the games to bring up Rush of Blood. Ugh. Yes.
I think that's my number one favourite Access moment of all time. Of all time.
The thing is, it probably would have come out at some point, because had I not said, I'm really scared of horror games, we probably would have just passed the horror games around like, Dave, are you okay to play Rush of Blood? And I probably would have just at some other point been found out. It came back to bite me. I think the first time that we experimented with this idea that I was afraid of horror games was probably the Outlast.
I think so, yeah.
Let's Play. And we haven't looked back. Yes.
Literally.
And it's funny because I was watching, we made a highlights reel of that, and I was reading the comments, and some people were just like, fake, no way he's scared, no way. And I'm like, oh my God, you guys, I am so scared.
I remember I wrote, I'd like to scare Dave, like literally on my cover letter.
It seems so crazy to me how it's affected my life. Like it really does. It really does. How many times have I had to do horrible things? It's now like an anniversary every year. I know that Halloween exists every year, but now it's just like, it's not even what should we do for Halloween this year. It's like, how shall we scare Dave this year? Of course, other people get scared now too. Thanks, Ash, for spreading it around a bit.
You're welcome.
But anytime a horror game is announced, anytime there's a preview coming up for a horror game, anytime a horror game is released, I want you guys to know that there is no small part of me that worries, are they going to ask me to play this game? Are we going to have to do a video on this game? Are they going to get the heart monitor out?
The answer's yes.
And strap me to it again?
I love how you're strapped to the heart machine. It's not strapped to you.
I'm very much strapped to it. It's like a anchor that ties me down. I'm sure it wouldn't have been possible, but a small part of me would like to believe that it would have been possible for me to go back and just keep my mouth shut. Have you played Resident Evil? No, I've never played Resident Evil.
So yeah,
The end. Or yeah, played all of them. No, because then it would be like, oh, well, you should play the next one.
What's the most scared do you think you've been playing a game on the channel?
It's Rush of Blood.
I reckon you could do it now, though.
No, Rosie, I can't.
You've grown so. The more horror you've been exposed to, we've seen like a braveness boost.
I don't think that's true, honestly.
What happened last Halloween was the braveness boost. I was like, what do I do?
That wasn't braveness. That was just because the parameters were about staying calm. I just had something to focus on, I guess. I think. I don't know. I don't want to put it to the test. Trust me, I am not any more brave than I ever have been.
Noted.
I'm not more fine. Not more.
So for this entry, I've actually got a little bit of a show and tell for this lesson I learned the hard way.
I'm very excited.
And it's a silly little one, but it's my Lara Croft figure. And her face is a bit chewed up because I learnt the lesson of having a puppy the hard way.
What was the lesson you learned here, Rosie?
That puppies like to chew everything. So if you leave some of your favourite toys out and about, a puppy will find a way to get its head in there and start chewing it to pieces.
That's brutal. I mean, Lara Croft has had some... she dies in brutal ways. And it's like she cannot escape, even the toy.
The way that he got a hold of Lara was because when I lived with my family, my mum had this little sort of tub in the bathroom of toys. They were pretty nostalgic toys. They were toys that my brother and I used to play with in the bath when we were kids. And Lara was, I loved this toy. I loved it. I still do love her, even though it also has a history of Angus on her now. This toy was on the top of the tub, because when you're a teenager, you don't really, well, at least I didn't really play with toys in the bath that much anymore. So she was just on the top. Angus found it. And a little exploring puppy that he is, and just went, I like chewing on, like chewing on something hard and plasticky. And then my mum found it in his mouth, tried to put it back in the tub and put it face down so that...
so that you wouldn't notice.
At least I remember finding Lara face down, because from the back she doesn't look that bad. And then I just thought, hang on a minute. I remember looking at the tub thinking, the memories. And I remember thinking, Lara's been moved. So that's when I discovered the mangled face. So I just thought, and I was like, my God, that's how I learned, If you have anything, like a toy you care about or anything like that, protect it. Protect your loved ones. This one, I think, was Jim's toy, in all fairness. Mine was the Lara on the bike, but she doesn't have the bike anymore because another child stepped on it when...
Oh.
I know, it was really sad. I remember that day. But,
Who? Just some random child?
No, it was a kid who was around our house. I think I might have been playing with the Lara on the bike, and then I can't remember if it was an accident or if it was, the child being horrible, but down went Lara's motorcycle.
Another lesson you've learned, Rosie. Don't get out the good toys.
The good toys.
When you've got guests around.
Yeah.
Because they'll inevitably want to play with them.
It looks like a toy, but really I think they were little figures. Like this one came with a sort of tomb overhead where a tiger was on top of it. And we still have the tiger I've put on the shelf so it looks like it's looking down on the games. For me, someone who loved Lara Croft, I still love Lara Croft, this is a very special toy. So yeah, this is how I learned the hard way that puppies will find a way to get anything they want. So protect the toys that you love, ladies and gentlemen. You have any toys, keep them safe and precious. But I love Angus, so this has also reminded me lots of Lord Angus.
I'm also imagining, in instances like these, and I'm reminded, Rosie, because you've got your Buzz Lightyear.
I'm a big child.
If Toy Story is real.
Yeah.
Lara.
It'll be like
she's in immeasurable pain now, but she's having to do the okay, I'm a toy, let's not move bit now. And right now, Lara's on camera. But internally, she's screaming with pain. My head's been chewed.
When I get home, it's going to be like Sid's bedroom, when all the toys that have Sid's experimented on. And Lara's just thinking of Angus, when Sid's on the table, he's like, Doctor, you've done it! And he's like experimenting. I just imagine Lara with Angus just be like,
Every time you say this, I think, God, it's got to be worse next Halloween. So that's all. Every time you say that,
no. Oh my God, I've literally just not learned the lesson again. Why am I being too honest? Why am I being too honest with my colleagues now?
and friends.
Unless I'm not being honest. But I am.
You're being honest.
I am being honest.
You're rubbing your shins like as if adjusting your
Please
socks.
don't make me play it again. Please don't make me play it again. It's too much. It's too much. I'll manage 30 seconds and then I'll just jib out into like a little rubber ball.
He will never learn, so he will continue to be punished. Let us know in the comments what video game lessons you've learned the hard way. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell if you haven't already done so, to make sure you're always up to date with everything from the world of PlayStation. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you again soon.